good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you may be tuning in to the Growing Our Future podcast. It's always a pleasure to have everyone join us, listeners, stakeholders, sponsors, students, advisors, and just anybody that's interested in improving their personal and professional brands and opportunities. So that's what the Growing Our Future podcast is about. And we enjoy bringing on subject matter experts to talk about a variety of topics, agricultural topics, leadership topics. I personally think you got to have balance. And I think one of those areas of balance includes the financial parts of our lives. And so today we've got two experts to talk about that. I'm going to let each one introduce themselves. I know both of these gentlemen well, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to follow up with a question, and I'm going to start. Here we'll go in alphabetical order. Codie, let you go first.
You bet. Yeah. Codie Hedge, in Graham, Texas. I'm the president of Graham Savings and Loan. Been here in the banking business for about 11 years now, and just an ever-changing environment, just like all of our environments seem to be these days. But I'm glad and honored to be able to be invited, by Aaron to join in with you and kind of discuss financial topics today for our young adults that are trying to grow into leaders.
And Kyle, introduce yourself, Kyle.
Absolutely. Kyle Anderson. I'm also in Graham, Texas, just right down the road from Codie. And I'm with Edward Jones, been with Edward Jones for 10 years. I'm a financial advisor here. I always say I wouldn't be where I am today without the FFA and what it taught me, the leadership skills, the owning your brand, building your brand. I owe all of that to the FFA and also my parents, the way they raised me. But there's a lot of things that we can relate to the business world back to those leadership skills that we learned in the FFA. So I'm excited to be able to take the leadership skills that I learned, implement them into my business, and then also bring that back to the youth of Texas and America. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for the opportunity today, Aaron.
Well, thanks, Kyle. We appreciate you and Codie both. By the way, Kyle is also a past Texas FFA officer. So I remember back when Kyle served, he did a good job then, and he's just continued to do a good job. So let's start this episode the way we start every episode. I believe that we have a lot more to be grateful for than we do to complain about. So I want to start by asking each of you, we'll go in reverse order this time. We'll start with you, Kyle. Kyle, what are you grateful for today?
Absolutely. Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity that I've been presented with through my company, through Edward Jones. And I say that, and a lot of people see the name on the door that it says Edward Jones Investments, but I'm grateful that I can take and build my own brand to be able to go out and help people. And that's my job, is to help people, to set a goal and to be able to work towards that and help them achieve their goals. And it relates back to back whenever we were showing, we had a goal of, hey, we want to go to a major and do well and prosper. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had through the FFA that will end up transpiring in my business. Also, I got to say, I'm grateful for family. I've got two wonderful boys, a wonderful wife, and so I'm grateful for a family that is supportive of what I do, and a company that allows me to have the time to spend with that family.
Very good. Very good. Codie, what about you? What are you grateful for today?
Well, if I have to put it, if I had to put it in a single word, I'd probably use the word grace. I'm grateful for the grace that I'm given from my God and from my spouse and my children and my bosses and, just everybody around me. I'm just a human sinner, just like everybody else is, and screw up at times. And so There's times when I mess up, and those times I'm blessed to have the people around me that allow me and provide me the grace that they provide me for that. So.
Well, I'm going to say amen to both of those, because I agree with both of you. I love family. I love the fact that we have jobs that allow us the resources to survive, but also the resources to help meet needs in communities and for others when we have a chance. And I agree too, Codie, that sometimes, we do need to accept that grace too sometimes, and just accept the fact that it's nice to know that people give us a second chance.
Absolutely. And a third and a fourth. Yeah.
And that's good stuff to be grateful for. So I'm going to start this segment with this that I know you can relate to. In the opening ceremonies of the FFA offices, when you open a meeting, you do what's called opening ceremonies. And the vice president says the treasurer, and they say stationed by the emblem of Washington. Your duty's there. And here's what it says. I keep a record of receipts and disbursements just as Washington kept his farm accounts, carefully and accurately. I encourage thrift among the members and strive to build up our financial standings through savings and investment. And I love the last part. George Washington was better able to serve his country because he was financially independent. Think about how many years ago that was written, how profound it is. And yet here we still use it today, and those words, and I think their encouragement, are timeless. The reason that we brought you two on today onto the podcast to offer your words of wisdom, your seeds of greatness, is to maybe give our students and teachers and stakeholders some tools to better understand financial planning, financial management, risk management. What does all of this look like? A lot of people are weighing the do I go to college? Do I not go to college? Do I get it? What kind of jobs do I search for? But everything involves commerce. And I know that both of you have had a little community involvement there in your local community, and Graham working with young people, juniors in high school, on kind of planning their financial strategies and better understanding that. So with that, I'm going to just kick it off to you guys and let y'all just start by sharing, if you could encourage a young person to begin planning and thinking about their future, their financial future, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I would, I guess I'll jump in there first, Kyle. I would just tell them to, I realize as a 16, 17-year-old young adult, you don't feel like you own a business. You don't feel like you have a brand to maintain or, business decisions to make. But I would encourage them to understand that in reality, they do. They are their business, and the decisions that they're making now for their future, whether that be a year from now or a couple of years from now, they're all going to tie back into who they become, and who they become is going to be the determining factor on the citizen that they become for their communities and their families and the United States of America. So I would just encourage them to understand that, in a way, the decisions that they're making now are business decisions, and probably some of the earliest business decisions that they're ever going to make.
Absolutely. And I agree 100% with Codie there. And I would say, as far as your financial future, learn now, start now, learning to live within your means. And that is, try to live on less than what is. And then right now, in starting those habits, will build on that to where it will set you up better financially in the future. And going back to touching on what Codie said, all of that is going to tie back into building your brand now to set you up for business opportunities in the future that will allow you to do that. And just because you have a piece of paper that is a college degree, that doesn't guarantee you that there's going to be, a six-figure job just waiting on you to come out. You have to go out and earn that. So put in the work, put in the effort now to set you up for a better financial future. And then whenever you get there, learn to live within your means, and that will set you up better financially later on in life.
That's some good stuff right there. Codie, I like that. You are your business. You are the business. So
Yeah.
when you don't think, well, I don't own I don't own anything yet, I'm not a business person yet. Well, you are. You are your business, and the way you run your business is also maybe the way you will run your business.
I
So
agree. That's right.
that was some good stuff. Live within your means. Kyle, I guess one of the things that came to my mind when you said that is, I know that when I left high school and I first went in at Texas Tech and I was a freshman there, I was amazed at how many people knew I was there, because all of a sudden I started getting all this fan mail, and this fan mail, they were offering me credit cards. And they were saying, hey, we really like you. Congratulations, you're in college, and we want to extend to you this line of credit. And I thought it was pretty appealing at first. But then all of a sudden, the interest rates that they were charging way beyond what my minimum payment was every month. Could you shed a little light on being cautious about when you do get out and you do start college, what that trap may look like? Because it's very enticing. But
absolutely, it's very shiny, it's very appealing, and yeah, I mean, they're going to advertise it as free money. I mean, you get to go spend this, even though you don't have it, you get to spend it. We're going to fund this for you. All you got to do is you just got to make this little payment every month. But what that little payment will do is it's going to compound on itself. And whenever you make that just minimum payment, that will not even keep up with the interest. You won't even be paying that down. And so therefore, by the time you get out of college, and all of this debt that you have compiled upon each other, now you're getting into a point where you're going to look at buying a house. Maybe you're wanting to go start your own business, and whenever you go to start your own business, they're going to go back and say, what is your credit history? And if you have, I forgot to make a couple payments, I skipped a couple payments just because I didn't have it in my account. Now that you're looking at bad credit, and so it is a very slippery slope. And I would say be extremely cautious. Credit cards have their place. I will say, if you are disciplined and you can handle that, and you're a very disciplined individual, then a very small credit card where you can maybe put a couple $100 on, pay it off at the end of the month. Put a couple $100 on, pay it off at the end of the month. Then you're building credit, you're building good credit, and that will help you when you get out of college. If you're not a disciplined person and you cannot do that, do not get a credit card. It is a slippery slope and can hurt you a lot in the future.
Codie, let's talk real quick about college. Students are getting ready to go to college. Is there or looking at college? Any tips on managing college debt or being prepared to navigate that and be responsible with that?
You bet, absolutely. I mean, it's in the world we see what the term that Kyle was just talking about, bad debt, and for the most part, that college debt that people take on to fulfill the need or perceptive need of going to college, it's not really looked at as bad debt. And I don't want people to think that I'm putting down, hey, if you can't pay cash for college, don't go type deal. But it absolutely needs to start at a junior in high school level, a senior in high school level. By the time you're a senior in high school, you're knocking on the door of going to college. I mean, these are decisions that really need to start, your junior year, and even sometimes in situations your sophomore year, depending on how complex of a degree, you're looking at trying to get into.
Mm-hmm.
But the debt needs to match the outcome of that college degree is the simple way to put it. If your parents are paying for your college and they're not expecting you to pay them back, and you want to go to TCU and get an education degree to be a teacher, that's fine. But if you're fixing to have to go into debt $150,000, $200,000 to get an education degree where you're going to come out of school making $38,000 a year and cap out at about $60,000 a year in your 30-year career, the math doesn't add up, and it is by all means not necessarily a bad debt, but you can make it a bad debt if you don't put some thought and some business decision into what are my goals with that degree? What type of degree am I getting? What's the opportunities out there in the real world after I get that degree? And let's back up to my current day, even though that's 5 years out, and make a decision on where I need to go to school based on what the cost of that school is, if I'm going to have to borrow the money to get that degree. So there's definitely some cases you're talking 8 years. You get into professional degrees, professional lines of work, doctor, veterinarians, just anything like that, dental, dentist. You get into anything like that, and you're talking about you need to start making financial decisions 8 to 10 years before you're ever going to see the fruits of that labor and that effort. So it's definitely something that college debt is definitely something to make proper and thoughtful decisions, and get peers and get your teachers and your guidance counselors at school and your FFA counselors and peers to help you with those decisions. I don't think anybody's expecting young people to know all the answers, but being able to step out there and get help and make sure you're making the right decision with what type of degree you want to get and where you're going to get it from and how you're going to pay for it is, that's your business. And, that's you are your business. And that's one of the first business decisions you'll ever make. And it can truly make or break a lot of your financial future based on how you handle it.
Let's stay with this for a second. This is really good. So I'm going to go back to you are your business. So as we start thinking about seeds of understanding and assimilating concepts, if I'm a young person right now, Kyle and Codie just said a couple things that I hope really you heard and you can assimilate, and they are these. Number one, ROI. Return on investment. Know what ROI is. You are your own business. If you are your own business, then you've got to be thinking about, well, if I put this in, how much can I expect to get out? What is my ROI on my business? That is my brand. That is my risk. That is my management of where I'm at and where I'm headed, whether, like Codie said, it's 8 to 10 years down the road. So know what ROI is on your brand, on your business, know what it is. The other one that I heard loud and clear was margins. I'm going to look at that ROI and I'm going to look at that margin and I'm going to go, well, I put in a lot of effort here. That margin's pretty thin. But if I'm smart about it, I put a little bit in here, but man, look at that margin. I think I want to be wise about that margin. So I think when you talk about you are your business, I think you've got to really hone in on what's my ROI and how do I improve my margins? Because if you can do that with your personal brand and your personal business, you will be a great value add to a business that you may work for or a business that you may own. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
100%.
All right. So Kyle, tell us about this building your brand and your management style And, does that involve community? Does it involve relationships? What does it mean when we say improve your business and improve your brand? Give us some tips.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of a little bit of a backstory, and we talked about this the other day, but whenever I got the call to the gentleman that recruited me to Edward Jones, and he asked me, and whenever he first made the mention of Edward Jones, I was like, you are absolutely crazy. No way. That is not the job for me. I struggled some in math growing up. I don't think that's going to be the career path for me. He said, okay, fair enough. But let me ask you this. He said, can you talk to people? I said, well, absolutely, I can talk to people. I do that all day, every day. You know me well. I can talk to anybody. And he said, okay. He said, can you go out and ask for the business? Well, yeah, that's not a problem. And then he said, can you close a deal? So in my current job, I close deals every day. That's what I do. And he said, okay, let us take care of the rest. And I kind of stepped back for a minute. I was like, okay, tell me a little bit more. And he said, we will train you to do the other part of the business. As long as you have the personal skills, as long as you have the relationship skills, that is the main part of this business. We will train you on the investment side, on the investment management side, not all of that. And so a couple things there, whenever I go back to your question, Aaron, and I tell that story for a reason, is because whenever you're talking about building your brand and building yourself up, I think you've got to work on number one first, and that is work on personal relationship skills. Work on how to work with people, work for people, be trainable, be coachable, and all of those things are things that are going to relate no matter what business you go into. Those are things that are going to apply to all of those, and know who you are and know what skills you have, hone in on those, and then continue to build them. And a lot of people, whenever they look at the door of Edward Jones and they see that investments, and they think that I sit back here and, they've seen the Wolf of Wall Street and all of that, and they think I'm back here just calling in trades and doing all of that. No, I'm in the relationship business. And that is my job, is to build relationships with my clients, so that I can get to know their situation, so I can get to know what their goals are, so that I can help them work towards and achieve a goal that they have set. And I think as a young person, and as a high school student, or even a college student, find a coach, find a mentor, somebody that can go out there and help you work on those skills to be a better person, to be a better leader, that you are somebody that whenever you get out of high school, whenever you get out of college, after you get your trade degree or your certification, that they say, I want to hire that guy because I can train him to do what our business is. I know he can learn. I know he can soak this in. And that's the type of people that companies and organizations want working with them.
Yeah. Well, there's no question. Everything that you just shared there, Kyle, just in terms of, most business, whether it's actually purchasing a good or a service, is very relational. So being attentive and being involved in the community and having strong networks, all of those things are conducive to your business. Go back to what Codie said. That's your business. That's you. So if you're doing those things very well, then they will lend themselves to business, which if you excel in that, I'm assuming, is it fair to say that if we do a good job, we might make a little bit more money?
Very fair.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so there's kind of an incentive there. So we want to improve our ability to make more money. Goes back to margins, by the way. If we want margins, then we've got to do the things. Listening to this podcast, no different. It's a competitive edge. How many people will never take the time to listen to the podcast? Probably the majority, but there's going to be a handful of students that are going to say, hey, listen, I think I'm going to tune in and see what they had to say. I want to improve my margins. I'm going to be a better leader. I'm going to be a better community member. I'm going to learn how to build these professional networks, to leverage my brand, to leverage my business, to improve somebody's business. I can see all of that really lending itself to a successful future, which is what this is about, growing our future podcast.
Yeah, and they need to know, just like Kyle said, that there's examples all over the world of people that are receiving those margins, and it's not because of anything other than it wasn't because they went to Harvard. It wasn't because they, it's because of who they are, how they were raised to be, the respect that they have for the people around them, the work ethic that they have every day when they show up to work. Those are the things that are going to get you further than anywhere you can ever dream of being. I'm the 39-year-old president of a bank, and I'm the first person in my family that ever even had a college degree. And that college degree wasn't in finance. I'm the president of a bank because of the work ethic that my parents instilled in me and the respect that they taught me to have for everybody around me. And that it gets you a lot further in a lot of cases than the name on your college degree. So
couldn't agree with you more. Kyle, when you said something a second ago, I thought I'd share that I visit a lot with a lot of student teachers that are about to get out into the career of education. And a lot of times the question is, what do I need to do to be a great teacher? And I always tell them it takes three things to be a great teacher. I said, number one, do your job. And a lot of times they look at me a little puzzled. I said, no, I need you to hear what I said. Do your job. If your administrator says, don't dot I's, don't cross T's, and staple in the top right-hand corner, you better not dot, cross, and you better staple in the top right-hand corner, or you're going to be looking for a job. Number one, do your job. And then, Kyle, you said the second one. Number two, have mentors. Have people around you, not that tell you what you want to hear, but people that tell us what we need to hear, that make us better. Iron sharpens iron. And lastly, I think the one that I tell them is you got to think big. I said, because if you can't think big, you can't teach big. If you can't think big, you can't inspire big. And if you can't think big, your kids can never be big. So thinking big, having mentors, and doing your job, all of those are about your business. They're all about your business. They're all about the ROI that you'll have in life. And it's all about the margins that you're going to create. Everything that was just said. So with that, let's go, Codie. I'll let you jump into the next one. So we're thinking about savings. Do I need to have savings? Why is savings important? How do I go down this path? What does that look like? I mean, I look back as a starving college kid of just how much disposable income. Yeah, I love that word disposable because that's what I did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dispose of it. Yeah.
It was disposable income, and I did. It was properly named. And I think about what would have happened if I would have just taken $50 of that disposable income and put it in a savings account every month. What would have happened as a young adult, as I got out in my first job, if I'd have taken $100 a month and stuck that over in a savings account until it grew to a point that I could put it in an investment account. Give us some suggestions of what that looks like. What path should a kid be looking at, or a teacher be encouraging their students to look at?
For me, I'm somebody that looks at, credit reports and financial statements all day long, every day. And I'll tell, I have to tell customers this a lot. And it's a great something for younger people who aren't in that environment quite yet to know before they get there is your finances. I don't care whether you're making $30,000 a year or $300,000 a year. In most cases, it doesn't tie back. The most important factor isn't how much you make. It's how much of what you make that you're spending every month.
Mhm.
You know, I can't tell you how many people that I underwrite a loan for that make $4,000 a month, and their debt to income ratio, i.e. how much money they spend each month versus how much they make each month, is great. And the flip side of that coin is how many people that I see that make $40,000 a month and their debt to income ratio is a disaster. So my first, thought on that is, yes, savings is great, but in order to have savings, you really got to make sure you're doing exactly what Kyle talked about earlier and living within your means. And part of living within your means, part of the benefits of that is it's going to give you the opportunity to start saving money. And I don't remember the exact numbers. Kyle can probably cover them better than I can, just because he's in that financial and savings industry. But it does not take much money at all. If you start at the age of 20, 22 years old, it doesn't take much money at all every month to turn that money into a $1, $2, $3 million by the time it's time for you to retire. I'm talking a couple, $200 or $300 a month. Can go a really long ways for a young person in their lifetime. Now, as far as options, I mean, man, there's so many options out there. You've got all the way from your fintech options where you never see that money and they never see that money, and it's just all digital, and all the way down to walking in here to your community bank and putting the money in your savings account. And there's going to be different returns on those savings depending on how risky you get, because that's life. The more risk you're willing to take, the higher the return is there in most cases. That's why we have Kyle Andersons in the world, where you can go find out where that sweet spot is to get the most return without the most risk. So, but yeah, savings is so important, but I would tell them up front that savings can be something that's not even possible if you don't really pay attention to living within your means, so that you have that extra money there to start saving. And then the second thing I would tell them is, saving, it doesn't have to be $1,000 a month. It doesn't. In order to turn into a giant wad of money for you and wealth and security for your future and your family's future and everybody else. So,
Kyle, you want to take on some of this a little bit about this financial planning? If I'm a kid, what does that look like? College kid. Again, I had the disposable income, and I just wished I would have had a bucket that I would have thrown that in, that one day I could have took to your office and said, here, invest this.
Absolutely. I would say start early, start often if you can. But first, start early. And whenever we talk about the planning aspect of things, so earlier we're talking to our sophomores, juniors, seniors in high school, and you're planning for 5, 6, 7 years out. Well, then as you get out of college, you're still planning for the future. It doesn't stop when you get a job and you have income, and now you have maybe some disposable income. And so now is the time for those college graduates or somebody that's about to graduate college and start planning for retirement, start planning for saving to buy a house. Those kind of things, I would say, set your goals. Know what your goals are, know what you want to achieve, and then we will work a plan to get there. So, it's kind of like the old adage, the old roadmap. I know nowadays those are non-existent because everybody has a phone and technology in their car where they punch it in. But still, it's the same thing. If you don't, if I'm traveling to Aaron Alejandro's house and I don't have an address, I just know he lives in Wichita Falls. I'm going to be all over the map. I'm going to be driving all over the place just to try to find Aaron's car in the driveway. And so if we have a end goal in mind, now that end goal may change along the way, and that's fine. But we need to start with the planning aspect of it. So coming back to the savings, and Codie hit the nail on the head where it doesn't take a lot if you start early. The longer you wait, the more money you're going to have to put back and more or less play catch up. And so that's why, I mean, if you take $200, $300, $400 a month, put that back into a savings account. First off, I would say make sure and get an emergency account set up. That would be number one. 3 to 6 months income. Something happens, God forbid you lose your job, you get laid off, something like that happens. You're not in a tight situation where you have to go out and accept the first offer that comes along. You have choices because you have some income. And then whenever you get another job, you build that back up. And then we start putting into a savings account that will help us prepare for our financial future, so that whenever we get to that point of retirement or buying a house, we know that we've planned ahead, we have the money prepared, and we're ready to achieve that goal that we set for ourselves.
Good stuff. Let's kind of talk about where students may be today, because I think the days of writing checks are about done. We have a lot of online transactions through the Texas FFA Foundation. A lot of our sponsors, even large sponsors, it's all digital. I mean, we live in a very digital world. So whether it's PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, the Amazon Pay, it doesn't matter. There's so many portals. There's going to be, again, go back to the credit card offerings. There's going to be lines of credit offering. I think the counsel to everybody is just be responsible, pay attention, have your firewalls up. Don't spread information that you don't need to spread. Be cautious about who you give your social security number to and what those formats are. They secure portals. If Kyle tells me that he's stranded over in New Zealand somewhere, I'm probably going to make a phone call first to find out if Kyle's in Graham or not before I would ever send money over to New Zealand or wherever around the world it may be. But the point being is that, yes, we are very fortunate to have mobile devices to be able to access resources quickly, but we need to be very aware and cautious as we do that, so that we don't do something erroneously that will cause us a lot of heartache. Codie, I guess you see a lot of that in the banking business, is just the securities and the firewalls and all of that.
Oh man, IT security that's the top of the pyramid in the banking world right now. Not that it hasn't been important forever, but IT security is as about a hot a topic as you can come across in the banking and finance industry right now. It is just mind-blowing how many hackers and fraudulent frauds there are out there, and even more scary how good they are. I mean, these are not people that get off of their 8 to 5 job and go home and say, let's see if we can get some extra money today. This is their job. This is what they do. This is their profession. They've been trained at it, and the organizations that are behind them are huge. I mean, there's huge conglomerations of these hackers out there, and they do billions and billions of dollars of damage to the United States and other countries across the world in their financial sectors every day.
So
every day.
So as young people, we just want them to be aware, be smart, pay attention.
Absolutely. If it the old adage, if it looks like a frog, and it kind of hops like a frog, and it kind of feels like a frog, that's a frog. There is, if you get in, I don't care whether it's a Facebook message or a email, Twitter, whatever it is, whether it's social media, whether it's email, whether it's snail mail. I mean, there's stuff that comes through the snail mail now that if you fill that out and you send it back to who sent it to you, your identity's toast. I mean, you just there's no telling the consequences for that type of stuff. So it's just awareness. It's just awareness of your surroundings and what's going on, but more so just the awareness that, hey, this is a giant issue and it is a big problem right now in our world and our economy. So it's long as they know that it exists and they pay attention and are on the lookout for it. No, you don't have to walk around scared all day long, and scared to open your mailbox or your email, but just pay attention when you're in there doing things, because it can have a giant, I mean, I can't go into stories obviously, but I mean, I've seen issues, in the banking industry with customers that just, oh man, they're just heartbreaking. They really are. They're really heartbreaking. A lot of times it is, it is targeted. It's targeted to young people who don't know any different, and it's targeted to elderly who are old enough to where they're just reaching and grasping for a little extra money at the time because they're on this, tight fixed income. And it's heartbreaking, some of the situations we have to see elderly and young people go through just over not paying attention, or maybe making that one phone call to their bank or even a family member or something to make sure what they're doing is a legit offering or whether it's bogus. It's out there and it's continuous. They don't care whether you deny it the first 2, 3, 4, 5 times. They'll keep coming with it until they get somebody on the hook.
Well, I'll tell you this, I've been around 56 years, and in that 56 years, there's always been lions and wolves, and they've been out there ever since I started. And I suspect that they're going to be there long after I'm gone. And what I would suspect, Codie, is there's always been good guys, there's always been bad guys, and there's also always been sheepdog that watch out for us. And
right, absolutely. Yeah. And then technology, technology is the biggest deal. That's like you talked about, you've got your Zelle and Cash App and Venmo and all of these things. Well, and those are all good, but just know that the same way that there's dozens and dozens of those new technology advancements coming out on the good side of things, there's just as many coming out on the bad side of things that are coming after the money you're trying to funnel through those apps.
Yep.
So just be very cautious. And if there's ever a hint of a doubt that this doesn't look right, don't do it. I had a perfect example just yesterday, and fortunately my wife, caught it. But when my wife and I have a little VRBO, short-term rental property, and a message came through, said, hey, my says it was from VRBO, and it says my son's needs a place to stay for a week. Can you call me? And I said, hey, here's a, she kind of handles all the bookings and stuff. So I gave her the phone and said, hey, you mind calling this lady? And she said, I'm not calling her. That's a scam. So what do you mean? It's the lady that's needing to book a place for her son for a few nights. No, she said she's got everything she needs right there on that VRBO website to book anything she wants to book for as long as she wants to book it. She doesn't need me to call her.
Yep.
Okay. And she said, trust me. And she pulled up her messages, and I mean, dozens and dozens of messages and every one of them start the same way. I'm booking for so-and-so, and I only need it for 3 nights. Can you please call me to see if these dates are available? I said, no, the dates are right. It shows them what dates are available. They don't need me to call them. So
Yep.
Good example for it. It may seem real to somebody who hadn't handled it every day, but she knew immediately, no, that's a scam. We're not doing that.
So I'll touch just real briefly here, and I think going back to the building relationships that we talked about earlier, and technology is great. I mean, we've got to keep up with technology to be able to advance in our careers, but I think there's something to be said about having a relationship with a personal bank like Codie's Bank, with us here at Edward Jones, or whoever it may be. Is having that personal relationship, so you have somebody to call, rather than some of these online places where you're going to be in a 1-800 call center. So I would encourage you, especially starting out and you're getting your feet wet, is have a personal relationship with somebody that you can turn to if something like this happens.
Couldn't agree more. I do that. If you look at the podcast, you look at everything we do, even what you guys do within your communities, almost everything we do with trusted advisors. We do with people that we've built relationships with, that we feel confident in their advice and their counsel and their discernment. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in those relationships, Kyle, very much so. All right, let's get ready to wrap this up real quick. Kyle, let's start with you. Give me your best leadership trait. If you could tell an FFA kid or a kid watching right now, put this one in your toolkit and use it, what would it be?
Golly, putting me on the spot there. I've already touched on it once. I would say be coachable, be trainable, and soak every ounce of information in. Because that is, again, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. That is what companies, that is what people are looking for, organizations, community leadership. That is what they are looking for. Just the respect that it portrays is, I'm not too good to learn to what you're teaching me. I don't already know everything. I'm willing to learn what you're willing to give me and apply that. There's no substitute for hustle, whether it is in business, and I coach a little league baseball team, and I tell them every practice, every game, I don't care if you win, I don't care if you lose, I care about how much effort you give me. And I think that is the case in anything, is just go all out with everything you've got every single day, and continue to be coachable, continue to learn each and every day.
That's good stuff. I think what that quote you just shared is in the little book of big quotes.
It might be.
I think you shared that one before. That's a good quote. All right, Codie, give me a leadership trait. What would you say somebody needs to put in their toolkit?
Oh man, there's a bunch of them, but if I'm going to narrow it down, I'm just going to say work ethic. From the time I was old enough to understand the words my dad was telling me, it was always the same comment all the way until I left his house at 18 years old. And that was, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right the very first time, And so if you're going to take the time out of your day, the time out of whatever you're doing out of your life to put effort into something, go ahead and put all the effort into it and make it a good effort the very first time. That and just respect. That's probably the thing, unfortunately, that I see just a growing lack of, is just respect for other people. And obviously, especially in industry and in business, and respect for your peers and respect for your authority. I mean, it really is a simpler concept than a lot of us try to make it. And it goes back to what you said earlier. If you know that most people in the world like the staple on the top left-hand corner, and that's how you've always seen it, but your boss says, I want the staples in the right-hand corner, that's your boss. Put the staple in the right-hand corner, and to me, that just comes from one word, and that's respect. You have enough respect for them to do what they tell you to do, when they tell you to do it, and put in a work ethic that's going to get the job done the way it needs to be done the very first time you make an effort at it. So
I like it. Codie's probably never heard me say this before, Codie, but before I took the foundation job, I used to work in a boot camp. I worked with truant offenders, and I worked in a prison. So I went from that job to working with the Kyle Andersons of the world. So it was really a step up from where I was. But
Right.
I remember one time I was in a coffee shop outside of our community, and people were in there drinking coffee, and they were cussing and discussing what's wrong with this country. And they told me, they said, Alejandro, to get this country back on track, we got to get back to the basics, the 3 R's. And I said, tell me about that. They said, yeah, we need to get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. And if we'll get back to the basics, we'll put the country back on track. And I remember listening to them, and I said, gentlemen, I mean you no disrespect, but I work in a boot camp. I work with truant offenders, and I work in a prison. And everybody that I work with can read, write, and do math at some functional level. I said, you're right about the 3 R's, but it's not reading, writing, arithmetic. I would argue that it's respect, responsibility, and resiliency. And I agree with you, Codie. I think if we could get back to being respectful of ourselves, our families, and our communities, to be responsible for our homes, our communities, our state, and our country, and learn to get up when we've been knocked down, I just think that we'll be a lot further down the road by getting back to some of those basics. So I appreciate that. We always have a fun question. So here we go. Codie, you go first.
All right.
What's the best concert you ever been to?
Best concert I've ever been to. Wow. I am going to go. Man, I've been to a lot of concerts. That's a tough one. I'm going to go with Gary Allen at Billy Bob's, Texas. He was the first concert that I ever went to that I walked away and thought, holy smokes, that guy sounded just like he did on the CD when he's playing in my car. You know, some of them I walk away from and I'm like, man, that sure didn't sound like the CD he did. But he was one of the very first ones I went to. I was like, wow, that guy's voice, he really is talented. He sounds just like he did on my radio in my vehicle.
Good stuff. What about you, Kyle? What's the best concert you ever been to?
So I would say mine would be George Strait opening up the new Jerry World.
Yeah.
And George Strait was the one that got Jerry to open the roof the first time in front of a public audience. And so man, that was something to see. I was glad to experience that.
Well, I've done 22 of these podcasts so far, and George Strait is now the #1 best concert I've ever been to. There's a lot more out there, obviously, that people, they kind of tune into, but that King George seems to be pretty prominent.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, he's a former Texas FFA member too, so we want to make sure we note that. So
absolutely.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank y'all for tuning in. I know that every time we put one of these podcasts out, we're trying to capture some information that builds us up personally and professionally. And I think you heard that loud and clear today. I mean, when it comes to your business, which is you, we want that return on investment in life. We want those margins in life. And when we take care of a lot of the things that we heard here today, those are the things that are going to give us those advantages. So the fact that you turned in, it's a competitive edge. At the end of the day, I always tell people, if you want to know what the future is, grow it. Well, what did we do today? We planted some seeds of greatness. So thank you for tuning in. Codie, Kyle, thank you. Keep up the good work. And
thank you for the invite, Aaron. I enjoyed it.
You bet. Everybody else out there, y'all just keep on keeping on. We got a lot to be grateful for. Go out there and take advantage of it.
Amen.